lovelies, it's Miss Lady Lace here on my Pinup Glamour channel and Pinup Glamour podcast, and today I have for you a getting ready with me video where I'm going to be talking through some of my top vintage styling tips, hairstyling tips, and all things vintage styling. If you're a long-time glamorous friend, welcome back, and if you're new here, I share topics and tutorials on pinup, burlesque, and the glamorous lifestyle, so if you love any of these, be sure to subscribe as I post new things every week. Today's video, I'm sharing a getting ready with me creating this fabulous look here with some of my top tips for vintage styling. I'm going to kind of compress them down a little bit as there's so many different elements that I could include, but I'll definitely be making another one of these videos with more tips specifically on victory rolls very soon. If you do want to learn more about the wet set and the brush out, I did release new videos at the beginning of 2023, which you can easily find on my YouTube channel. We're going to start today by talking about the 3 keys to vintage styling. So these are my biggest tips for anyone who's looking to get into pinup fashion, vintage fashion, pinup hair, and all those other things. These 3 keys are what will help you get better at your styling. Starting with key number 1, we have patience. I have been teaching vintage styling both in person and online here on YouTube for many years now, and one of the biggest things I hear is that most people don't have a lot of patience when it comes to vintage styling. If it is something you're really interested in mastering, you will need that patience to get you through to really master that style. Whether it's patience in the moment where you just get hot and flustered, take a deep breath, grab a drink of water, and refocus yourself ready to style. For others, it may be more a long-term thing where they lose interest after a while, lose patience after practicing a few times, and they're still not able to achieve it. Trust me, the more you do it, the better you will get. My victory rolls looked awful for many years, and it's only with that patience that I was able to prevail. Key number 2 is practice. Practice makes better, and this is definitely one of my sayings that apply to all elements of my life. If you want to get better at vintage styling, you need to practice as much as possible. Do it every day if you can, or every other day, or once or twice a week, whenever you can fit it into your schedule, but the more practice, the better you will become at styling. Key number 3 is acceptance. We need to accept the way our hair looks and accept that we're doing the best that we possibly can, and more often than not, we'll find that people still really love what we've created, even though it's something we don't adore ourselves. Especially since quite often when we look in the mirror, we really focus on, oh, there's a flyaway here, or oh, that curl isn't sitting quite right there. When you're out and about, I'm sure no one's going to notice this, so we really need to accept the best that we can do. And don't forget, when you're looking at photos of pinups and photo shoots online, videos, or even at your favorite pinups like Dita Von Teese, there are many things that affect the way they look. It could be a photo shoot photo, a filter, or other elements that will affect the way that that photo and the hair will look. Quite often, even just with a photo, you're not going to see a little flyaway anyway. Even the best of pinups have bad hair days, so accept the best that you can do, and it'll really help you in your hairstyling journey. We'll now get into the getting ready with me aspect of this video. I'm going to go through many tips as I style my hair, and I'm also going to finish the video with some factors why your hair may be working, or factors why the style may look different on your hair compared to my hair. So my hair is already set, and I'm on day 3 of this set. So I'm going to just take this out and prep that for styling. When you're doing your set, my biggest tip would be what you set is what you get. So when you put in those curlers, make sure they're nice and neat, and that way the ends will be nicely wrapped and that'll create a beautiful curl. As well as it being neatly wrapped, you want to ensure that everything's nice and comfortable with your rollers in. If anything's causing discomfort now, as the night progresses, it will likely become more and more uncomfortable. If anything isn't sitting right, don't be afraid to re-roll or re-section, as quite often hairs will pull in different directions, creating a tension point, possibly causing a headache. Using the correct products is also really important as well. If you're using heat set products for doing a wet set, it's probably not going to create your desired look, as that product is designed to be activated by heat. The same with wet set products, especially my homemade recipe, aren't really designed for your heat sets. Even when we're looking at things like hairspray, I just use the cheap Coles brand hairspray as it's a really great working hairspray, but you want to pay attention to the type of hairspray you purchase. Many hairsprays are designed for different functions. A working hairspray or lighter hairspray is great for styling because you can spray it in and continue brushing through. If you instead used a finishing spray and tried to brush that through, it'll likely create really sticky, tacky points. It'll separate in strange ways. It won't do what you're hoping to achieve. If you do love a finishing hairspray, that is something to use at the end of the styling. When it comes to the brush out, you definitely want to do lots of brushing, especially if it's the first day of the set and you've really got to brush out those curls. As you can see, this is day 3 and these curls are not going to go anywhere. So the wet set is really effective in this way. The biggest mistake I see a lot of people either telling other people or teaching people is if you just keep brushing, eventually your hair will do exactly what you want it to. And as you can see, it's just kind of getting frizzier and not styling together. We really need to dress up that vintage style or actually style it into something. For most styles, your hair won't just magically fall into place, so you will need to work on refining your styling skills a little bit in that way to create your desired look. For my everyday vintage look, I really like that shorter swept under curl look, and I simply achieve this by using my hand as a tool, brushing against this, and what this is going to do is create that curl coming under to create that beautiful vintage style. This is just the first step though, and we'll continue to work on that a little bit further. If you have lots of flyaway hairs, especially around this part, I just take a little bit of hairspray and a bristle brush and just smooth that section out. This will ensure it catches all the hair in that area. If your hair is especially prone to frizz, it could be a good idea to also invest in a pomade from somewhere like Suavecita to really help tame that wild hair. I put the hairspray all throughout my hair, and then I'm really rolling that through with my hands, really bringing it into this nice little curl I want it to create, and then letting it fall into place. To help that styling really hit this point here, I'm going to take a comb and brush down to that point and really lock that in. You can also use a sectioning clip to clip this down, pop in a bit of hairspray and let that set for just a moment. Like many things, I think of my hair on both sides as being sisters and not twins, so it doesn't need to be perfectly symmetrical to look fabulous. In fact, a bit of asymmetry in life can create all the difference in that look. For all elements of styling, as I mentioned, practice will make better. When we're styling, looking at the back of our head can be very difficult, so I like to have a little mirror on my wall that I can just pop behind, and I can use that to check what the back side of the hair is looking by having a bigger mirror in front of me, and this will make the world of difference and really fix up those back sides when styling. If you find your hands are getting really tacky from all the product you're using and making it really difficult to style, it can be a good idea to take a quick break, grab a drink of water, wash your hands so they're nice and clean to make that styling process a little bit easier. If you're using really thick pomades, sometimes it'll hinder your styling as you go, as it's getting stuck or pulling other parts out. So by just refreshing and cleaning your hands, it's really going to help you in that styling process. My next big tip is to use a hairnet. I use one most days and for most of my shows. Quite often people don't notice them, or when they do notice them, they're quite complimentary that it is a really efficient way of the hair looking quite neat and lasting a lot longer while being relatively unnoticeable as well. My hairnets I just buy from Lady Jane, just from my local chemist, but you can buy a wide variety of hairnets. I like this shorter one as it's just a nice easy style, but there are much longer hairnets. There's one I get from Sequin City quite regularly, which is much fuller, which is great for those vintage waves, but this is generally my go-to look, and they're really affordable hairnets too. I think I will likely make another video just dedicated to tips on how to do victory rolls, as there's so many components that I could talk about when it comes to the victory roll. But the tip I will share today is to not be afraid to re-roll your hair. So if you style something and you roll it up and it's just not looking the way you'd like, don't be afraid to re-roll that and restyle that. I would do that every other day I need to re-roll that hair just because it's not sitting the way I like, or I've not teased it in the right way that I want it to sit. So by restyling, re-rolling, I'm able to create that desired look without just trying it once and being unhappy. Remembering though, acceptance is a really big part of that vintage styling journey that we've been talking about. Your bad hair day is probably someone else's good hair day. There have been so many days where I have styled my hair and been so unhappy and then gone out and received so many compliments about the way my hair looks. Another big tip when using hairspray is you don't want to hold it too close to the hair, no matter where you're styling. It's recommended about 20 centimeters. I would say I usually go about 10 to 15, but if you go too close, it'll create a really deep, saturated patch of that hairspray. If you go out a little bit further, you'll find it's a lot easier to work with. Now, no matter what tips I give, or if you've tried some of my tutorials before, there may be many factors that affect the way that your hair turns out. When it comes to vintage hairstyling, these are the factors I teach in a lot of my workshops. And our first factor is dependent on your hair type. So my hair type is a little bit more between straight and curly. It's got an odd wavy look. It doesn't look particularly good unless I set it. There are many factors that contribute to our hair type, if it's dyed, if it's natural, if we have a cultural background that has a different hair type altogether. These are all factors that will affect how our hair will turn out. I'd recommend if you do have something like this which you think is causing you some issues, I'd recommend finding a content creator with a similar hair type to yourself and learning their tips and tricks. Another big factor is our haircut. So if you have a short haircut with lots of layers, it's obviously going to turn out very differently to how my hair looks, as I've got a vintage haircut with a horseshoe shape at the back. So that haircut is definitely going to affect that look. Our next factor is going to be our setting pattern, depending how you put in those curlers, depending how you want them to look, which direction that you roll them in. There'll be many different outcomes. As well as a setting pattern, the way that we brush out our hair, the direction we brush it in, the brushing style we're using will create different looks. It's a very different method to creating this look versus your Hollywood waves versus many other different styles. And the final factor I'll mention today is the products that you use, which I kind of touched on in my tips before. If you're using a wet set product for heat set, it's likely you're not going to achieve that same look. So you want to look for products that are both suited for vintage styling and suited for your method of curling or styling. That way you get the most out of that setting and styling. Shall we go with a hair flower today? I think so. I'm actually going to get my license picture taken soon, so I'm hoping that they won't mind if I have this hair flower in, but I can easily take that out if it's a problem. So here we have our final look. I'm super happy with it. I could do a lot more playing with it, but I've got a lot to do today, so I think that will be perfect. And we'll be practicing our key to hairstyling, which is acceptance, because it still looks really fabulous. I truly hope you've enjoyed today's vintage styling tips video and found it a little bit useful. If you have, be sure to give it a like and a comment on YouTube, as that really helps me out. And if you are on Spotify, if you could give me a follow and a 5-star review, that would really mean so much to me. If you'd like early access to these videos and podcasts, I do have my Glamour community on Patreon. I'd like to thank all my patrons, but especially my VIP Glamour patrons and Burlesque Glamour students. The support you give me truly helps me in creating more here on YouTube and Spotify. For more vintage hair inspiration and for my daily pinup adventures, I post super regularly to Instagram and TikTok. Simply follow @MissLadyLace and be sure to drop me a message so I can follow you back too. To never miss out on one of my videos or podcasts, be sure to subscribe and I'll see you in my next video. Don't forget to stay glamorous.